I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off-road. The guy managed the group. He was like, what are you doing in this beautiful car? I'm like, I'm going off-road. He's like, are you sure? Because you can use one of ours. And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability, as well as its robust interior, are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
Sometimes it takes a different approach to help you unlock your true potential. Capella University's game-changing FlexPath format helps you learn at your own pace and fit earning a degree into your life. From before you enroll to after you graduate, you'll be supported by people who are invested in your success so you can pursue your goals knowing that help is available if you need it. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Choose Yourself Network. Today on the James Altucher Show.
From 2001, the economy was such that competition was intensifying, so actual mass media journalism was becoming a commodity, and you had to figure out a way to reinvent, to stand out.
Yeah. And what I was doing is I was just having millions of ideas on the go, and I felt quite overwhelmed by data information. And there was a particular article I was researching that was very complicated, and I thought, I just cannot track all the perspectives in this article, so I'm going to draw it. So I drew out like a sketch, and there was a little ping moment, and I thought, wow, maybe I don't have to write the article, I could just make diagrams. And then I started looking around, and I discovered this thing called data visualization. You're not tied to a vertical, linear depiction of this information, so it's a bit more enjoyable. You can apply visualization to any topic, any data, any subject matter, anything you're interested in can be visualized, and then it suddenly becomes more digestible, more approachable, more memorable.
So I'm here with David McCandless, the master of all infographics. You don't mind if I call you that, right?
I'm blushing a little bit, but okay, go on.
So you're the author of The Visual Miscellaneum and what was the second title?
Knowledge is Beautiful.
Knowledge is Beautiful. And I actually knew about you long before we met because your infographics have this tendency to go viral. Like everyone sees them. And you did this one infographic, which I bookmarked somewhere in here, snake oil supplements. And it was this beautiful page of it was like 100 or so. I don't know how many supplements you had in there. Like everything from like vitamin D to resveratrol to all these things. And what was actually healthy according to research, what was unhealthy according to research, what was just placebo. And I thought that was, for me, as someone who has regularly unhealthy but trying to be healthier, I was always interested what's BS and what's not. And you did all the work on one page. I didn't have to read like thousands of scientific documents. And it seems like that's the beauty of infographics, is I could see everything on one page.
Yeah.
And so you were mentioning to me earlier that, well, first off, how did you start into the infographics? Because it was a big change for you, right?
Yeah, I was a journalist, like a normal print traditional journalist, writing articles.
Like what kind of articles?
I wrote for Wired, I wrote for The Guardian, just anything I was interested in, but I did some news features, technology, underground, subculture, that kind of thing. But that was becoming harder and harder as the web was getting more and more intense.
What do you mean by how is the web getting? Wouldn't the web being intense make it easier to kind of see, what subcultures were happening? And
I wasn't finding it hard to find stories. I was just finding it hard to sell stories because there was a lot more competition, if you like, as a journalist. And the stuff that I was interested in was getting more and more niche as the press was getting more and more mainstream, and it was all about what was current and what was topical. I was more interested in deeper layers of things and ideas and how people were seeing the world or not seeing the world.
Like what do you mean by seeing the world and not seeing the world?
Well, like I was interested in in the subcultures and in splashing around in those pools. There are a lot of people have a lot of different perspectives. They have a lot of different angles on things that aren't necessarily of interest to your average newspaper editor.
Like what?
Well, one of the stories I wrote was around I was splashing around in a lot of underground drug culture. And I found a story about a man who had taken 30,000 ecstasy tablets in his lifetime. And he suffered a whole range of incredible physical and mental symptoms that were emblematic at the time of what people were saying ecstasy was bad for. That you took it a lot, you would end up.
When you talked to him, what was he like?
I know, I never found him. I found a study about him, but it was just a fascinating story about one man's excess and his subsequent becoming disabled. And that was the only story I could sell from that world into the mainstream press because it was a great headline, The Man Who Took 30,000 Pills of Ecstasy.
So it's interesting because what year was that?
That would have been 2001. So
even from 2001, the economy was such that, competition was intensifying. So actual mass media journalism was becoming a commodity, and you had to figure out a way to reinvent, to stand out.
Yeah. And what I was doing is I was just had millions of ideas on the go, and I was researching them. I'm a live journalist. I'm researching this. I'm backing up this one. I'm fleshing out this one. So I had many ideas on the go, and I felt quite overwhelmed by data, information, all the things I was researching. And there was a particular article I was researching that was very complicated, and I thought, I just cannot track all the perspectives in this article, so I'm going to draw it. So I drew out like a sketch, but then putting this here, moving this right, summarizing this perspective.
What was the article about?
It was about creationist theory and evolutionary theory, which was at the time were loggerheads in the press and in the US government. The creationist movement, evolutionary theory, fighting out in the schools. And it struck me that both camps, they were seen as blocks, but actually they were made up of little sub-camps that all disagreeing with each other. There was a parallel there.
So you're saying even within the creationist camp, there were different camps?
Different types of creationism, and they disagree with this type of creationism and this creationism. In evolutionary theory, there's the punctuated equilibrium crowd, there's the convergent evolution crowd, there's all these little camps, and they all have little subtle nuances and disagree with each other. So I thought it was an interesting parallel. But many different perspectives I couldn't track. So I drew this diagram just tracking them. And I remember after sketching this, a crappy sketch, but I remember looking at it and thinking, maybe I've done my job as a journalist here. Maybe I've communicated my understanding of this topic in this diagram. So maybe I had to write the article.
As opposed to writing like a book on all the different subcultures within creationism and evolutionary theory, just one diagram did it.
Yeah. And there was a little ping moment, and I thought, wow, maybe I don't have to write the article, I could just make diagrams. And then I started looking around, and I discovered this thing called data visualization.
Did you do something with that diagram?
It's in my book.
I think I actually saw it, actually. Yeah. I have a bookmark.
So it became one of the first graphics I created.
And did people respond to it in a much different way than they respond to a normal news article?
Well, I didn't release it. Mm-hmm. I just thought, this is interesting, but I never actually got it commissioned or released it. And that was before I did any infographics. So it wasn't until much later, until my book, actually I created a book of 256 infographics, Information Beautiful, Visual Miscellaneum. And it was rejected by the bookshops. So I've spent 2 years creating this book, and I was about to release it in the book. None of the bookshops wanted to take it. But it was too highbrow.
Did you get depressed?
I was very upset, yeah.
Did you cry?
I didn't cry, but I had a sort of inner collapse. Like I said, I took to my bed for about 2 hours.
Why didn't you, alongside, I'm just trying to think what I might have done differently, alongside of just spending all this time and energy making 250 graphics for a book, why don't you try to get them published individually, like in different magazines, or because magazines are looking for content,
right?
There's particularly visual content that they weren't getting.
Well, it was hard to pitch. Like I would go to people and say, well, what are you doing, David? Oh, I've got these information maps. I call them information maps then. I've got these information maps of these various subjects. You were like, what? You know, even when I showed them to them, they were just like, we don't have a section for that. We don't know where to put that in the magazine. Or we don't know where to put that in the newspaper.
But like, what were some of the ideas? Like, 'cause some of the ideas were fascinating. I can't believe they wouldn't be interested in publishing them.
Well, I didn't hit such a big wall. I very much decided I was going to do a book and release a book. So I essentially just created a load and then hoarded them and put them in the book.
Mm-hmm. And some of these in the book are really. So I'm just going to describe some of them in my bookmark. We can talk about. Like, you did a word cloud of what sites? Some of these websites about books. Basically, books everyone should read. And so in big letters, you have like Catch-22, Pride and Prejudice. In small letters, you have The Good Earth, The Shipping News. Mm. So and these are kind of like what were recommended for. It almost looks like these are books recommended for schools or by critics or.
So this graphic is a consensus cloud. So instead of me telling somebody this is the books you should read, I took every single Pulitzer Prize winner, every single book poll, every single end-of-year roundup of the best books compiled them all into one data set and saw which books surfaced from all of them. So that's a visualization of the books that all these independent polls agree on are the best books to read.
So basically, it's really funny. So basically, Catch-22 is the one they recommend the most. And then To Kill a Mockingbird and Pride and Prejudice are second and third. And I like Slaughterhouse-Five up there. It's a little more offbeat. And then you have this one, Which Fish Are Okay to Eat? So you have everything from what's okay to eat here. So like catfish is okay to eat, is that right?
Apparently.
And then not okay to eat is shrimp. Why is shrimp not okay to eat?
I think it's mostly farmed. So it's about whether you want to eat farmed food.
Ah, okay. And then what are some of these other infographics here? This one was fun. International number ones. So I'm looking at a map of the world. And for every country in the world, they're number one at something.
Right.
So Russia is number one at abortions.
Yep.
What does it mean? Does that mean they have more abortions than any other?
Yeah.
Oh, per capita. Mm-hmm. Okay, so like Brazil is number one in gun deaths. I didn't know that. I'm just going to let the audience think for a second. The listeners think, what would you imagine the U.S. is number one at all things they could be number one at? And give you a few seconds. So. What's the answer?
Serial killers.
Why do you think the U.S. is number one at serial killers as opposed to like any other country?
That is a very good and big question.
Like the UK, where you're from, is known for the most famous serial killer, Jack the Ripper.
Right. Yeah, we started it, but then like everything we start, the Americans just sort of take over and do better.
Canada, number one for single parent families. Why would that be? Because maybe they're more liberal about divorce laws or something?
Perhaps, yeah.
Australia, I'm not going to drive a car in, which people can find out why if they buy this book. What was the most unusual piece of data that you got from this graphic?
Let's have a look. I think I just remember the impetus for this was like I just thought there's got to be something every country is good at. So I went through all the data trying to find things. I mean, the thing for me is like the biggest country for Brazil nuts is actually Uruguay.
That's funny. Not Brazil.
No.
Well, I guess France is not the biggest for French fries. So what is France the biggest for? Hold on a second. Sugar beet. I don't even know what that is.
It's like sugar cane, but it's more of a root vegetable.
I have to keep looking at this. I'm sorry, just for 1 second. So, okay, opium, that's Afghanistan?
That's actually an old version of the graphic. There's a more recent version I just released last week.
Oh, really?
The date,
on your website?
On my website.
What's your website URL?
Informationisbeautiful.net. We could put some of all the graphics we mentioned. I could just do a special page and people could see them.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Wait, what country is this where roller coasters are number one?
Testing my geography. I think that's the Philippines.
Okay, roller coasters number one in the Philippines. So here's the question I have. So I'm looking at this as a graphic and obviously it's beautiful. It's a map of the world. People love maps. But what makes this different from just looking at a list of countries with their number one in the world at? Like, why would this be more engaging?
Well, this is non-linear, so you can explore this map, this information map, if you like, in your own way. You can roam down South Africa, you can go across to Europe. You're not tied to a vertical, linear depiction of this information. So it's a bit more enjoyable. It's like a roam, it's like a walk through the woods. It's just see what you can find. You just did it yourself. You just explored and found countries of interest. So it introduces a non-linear.
We got it.
You got it.
But one thing that's interesting, though, I guess it makes the brain work harder at finding correlations. So if I'm just looking at a list, then I'm looking at one country at a time and one thing at a time. But here I can say, oh, Asia might have something more in common, and North America might have something more in common. So there's other ways I can look at this. I can group things in different ways when it's graphic like that.
And you get the feeling of discovery when you come across something. So there's like a little, oh, yeah.
So I want to go over some of these infographics a little more because they're all kind of fascinating. But when you were making this switch, you're still making the switch from journalism to a completely different career, really. It's kind of journalism, but it's moving sort of the article writing into this design and infographics. And we see now, like I saw myself, I took an article I had written 6 months ago, and we did an infographic of the article, and that infographic resulted in maybe 10 times as much engagement as the original article. So there clearly is something to it that people want to consume things in graphical form if they can. So again, did you start publishing these with magazines, or did you focus on the books, or how did it become like a career for you?
Well, like I said, I did the book and it was rejected by the bookshop. So in order to get some groundswell, I launched a website. I launched informationisbeautiful.net. And the website went supernova. Like I released a few graphics, $1 Billion-gram, a few other ones. That went
Which ones were?
There was one called the $1 Billion-gram where I've scraped $1 billion amounts from news reports and so on, which are always reported as self-evident facts. They're just massive numbers that nobody can relate to. Sized them according to certain blocks and created like a big sort of tessellating quilt, if you like, of all these blocks. And that image rose out of frustration I had with the depiction of those.
Wait, I don't understand that one. So,
okay.
So stories mentioning $1 billion? Or?
Yeah, so like a headline, $50 billion for this takeover, $100 billion sequestered for this war. You see these numbers in the press, but is that a lot for a war? Is that a lot for a takeover? You don't know. So I grabbed a load of these numbers in one place and then visualized them as blocks. So scaled the blocks according to the amounts, and then just interlock them all together in this big tessellating diagram. So you can see relatively how things are sized. You can make comparisons. You can see contrasts. You see them all in one place. And normally these numbers are scattered across multiple sources. You never see them together.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think I saw either that graphic or a graphic related to that one where you had like the Iraq War total cost was about $3,000 billion, and then something else was 10 billion. So 10 billion still a lot, but it was like nothing compared. Then you see it in graphical form. It was like a dot compared to the Iraq War. So what was another graphic that you put on your site that were you starting to sell ads on the site, or was the site?
No, it's just rootsy. It was literally a WordPress blog. I just took them up there because I wanted to get a bit of following. I put one, there was a left versus right graphic, which is a political concept map showing how the ideas of the political spectrum percolate down from government into individuals and back around the cycle. And it's a visualization of people's ideas. And it's good to see the difference between left and right. You might intuit what the left stands for and the right stands for, but seeing them in contrast and comparison just highlights the differences. And it looks kind of beautiful. It's a flowing flow chart.
So again, how come I couldn't just see that as two lists? Like here's what the left believes, here's what the right believes. So pro-choice, pro-life, pro-war, anti-war, or whatever.
Well, yeah, you could do it as a list, but this is structured and it has, like I said, it has like a graphical flow to it. So it's an enjoyable journey through the information. And it's sort of beautiful, so it draws you in. You might not look at a bare list, it might be kind of boring to you, but a beautiful image that you see from afar or see in a book and you look closer and you get engaged. So the visualizing something just makes it more engaging, more attractive.
And so were you finding that the traffic was exploding because people were sharing the graphics like with their friends or whatever?
Yeah.
So
the graphics went nuts. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I've never had any kind of response like that to work I've done. I mean, it was thousands of hits, millions of hits, and then on Reddit and Dig at the time and various other places that were going supernova. And I think I'd hit a certain point where there was a feeling that was a lot of data emerging, but there wasn't a lot of understanding of the data and a lot of information about it, and nobody could quite link it all up. So this felt like a a new opportunity to popularize visual communication. And I create diagrams that tapped into things that people were really not understanding.
So now you have this website generating millions and millions of hits. What happens next?
Well, sorry, are we talking about historically what happened next?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to think. So then suddenly the bookshops wanted the book, and the book was in the shops, and it started selling loads and loads of copies, and it was very exciting. And then I was invited to do a TED Talk, as you do. Then I did a TED Talk, and that went super viral as well. So then that was another wave, and suddenly it was like...
How many views are on the TED Talk now?
I got 2 million.
Okay, great.
Is that a good number? I don't know.
There's 130,000 on my TED Talk.
Oh, right.
So it's putting almost on the infographic of TED Talks. I'm a small dot, and you're this big block.
Yeah. And that was very exciting. I remember I was on holiday at the time when they put it up, and I didn't have my phone on me, and then I logged back into my phone, Facebook, and I had like 5,000 new friends on Facebook.
As you do.
Suddenly. And then that just became, it was great. It was very supportive, and I got very enthusiastic, and all the time I was just creating the work. I just wanted to just make work. So I managed to be able to turn off my day work, which was like just being a normal journalist, and just dedicate my time to create more and more images. And
were you how did you start kind of reinventing career-wise? Like, how did you start making a living doing infographics? I guess the book was selling, but...
The book was selling, but I had to earn out my advance. So what happened is, like, every single company started knocking on my door saying, can you do this for us? We've got lots of data. Can you just do the magic thing to our data and make it look like this?
Like who?
Stuff. GE, BBC.
Like, what would GE want what would GE want?
They wanted to illuminate a lot of the stuff they were doing around eco actions and products they released that were very cool, but nobody could really understand them, or they were very niche, and they wanted to see them visualized. They wanted themes around those products visualized. So did some nice work with them. They were very good to work with.
Would you ever get, let's say you put so you're taking all this data and you're kind of conceptualizing how the design should look, and you're putting this infographic up. Would you ever get upset if you put it out there and people were like, not this one for us?
Not so much that, but what really upset me is when I got something wrong, and I did occasionally get things wrong.
Like when?
I remember when the Icelandic volcano came out, and I did this image of because the volcano was spewing huge amounts of CO2, but the flights were being grounded. So, were we actually winning here? Were we actually saving the Earth because there was less CO2 from the flights, or was the volcano releasing so much CO2 that it was actually, was it the first carbon neutral volcano, basically? That was the question. And we did a lot of research, did a lot of calcs, and we missed a zero in the calc and released it, and it went viral, 6,000 tweets and all this. And then we noticed the error in the calculation. It was just like... So it was just a kind of mortifying moment. It's horrible to get something wrong as a journalist. It's really horrible to see that error circulating round and round and round and round.
What'd you do?
Issued a correction. 29 retweets.
And what did the correction say? What was the determination?
It was a first carbon neutral volcano. It definitely was.
That's interesting. It was grounding the flights didn't change global warming at all. No. So you mentioned earlier, and we started talking about it, but how the process of doing all these infographics and getting all this data and kind of condensing them down to this more easily understandable form has made you less anxious about the world or life or whatever. What about that made you less anxious?
Well, a lot of the graphics stem from feelings that I have, like maybe I feel like I don't understand something, or I feel ignorant, driven by my ignorance, or I feel anxious about something and I want to understand, get to the data and see if it's real.
Like what's something that you get anxious about?
Like flying. Flying was a big thing for me, like plane crashes, flight safety, and so on. So I created a bunch of graphics around that, and I took every single fatal air passenger crash of the last 20 years and examined the root cause of each one. And was it human error? Was it mechanical error when it occurred? What airline? What time of day? What destination? Slicing, dicing all this data to try and find out if there was a pattern. or there's some way I can minimize my risk. But what I found is that air travel is just getting safer and safer and safer. There are less and less crashes, less and less fatalities. And although every crash is big and it's in the media and it feels fearful, it's actually, they're getting smaller and smaller and more reduced. So it's kind of like relax, just accept.
I think I saw there was a graphic that I bookmarked in this book, Dangers of Death.
Oh yeah.
So I said, I guess this. So you have all these circles. One's big. Each one's smaller than the one next to it. So dying from any cause, everybody dies. So there's a 1 in 1 chance you're going to die from some cause.
Right.
Then heart disease is the next biggest circle. So there's a 1 in 3 chance. Then cancer, there's a 1 in 7 chance someone's going to die of cancer. Mm-hmm. Stroke, 1 in 23. So was there anything here? There were some things here that surprised me, like freak lawnmower accident. There's a 1 in 53,000 chance I'm going to die from a freak lawnmower accident.
Apparently, yeah.
This is a weird one. I don't know how you get the data for this. There's a 1 in 7,895 chance that I'm going to die from passive smoking. Mm-hmm. I wonder how they get the data from that.
A lot of this data came from insurance company ratings, actually. Yeah.
Suicide, 1 in 9,380 people commit suicide.
Say that again?
1 in 9,380 people.
9,383. That sounds about right.
I wonder, it seems interesting to me to do that across, I would like to see that correlated against the stock market. So are more people killing themselves when the stock market's down or when the stock market's up?
Seasonal
or if it
trends.
doesn't matter, yeah. And also sex, age, everything relating to suicide. I don't know. I'm fascinated by suicide. Mm-hmm. 1 in 78,000 people will die in an avalanche. 1 in 147,000 from a dog attack. That's got to be pretty bad.
Yeah, it's not a good way to go.
Wait, I don't understand this one. 1 in 500,000 people will die from an asteroid impact?
No, you've got a 1 in 500,000 chance of dying from an asteroid impact, yeah.
So, like, asteroids actually, I guess small asteroids hit the Earth? And
maybe like a small pellet-sized one just hits you.
All right. So, yeah, that makes me feel pretty good. I'm probably not going to die from an asteroid impact. What other things made you less stressed? So there was plane safety, obviously.
Well, working in the media and, like, being a journalist, there are certain things that get inflamed by the media. So big stories like swine flu, bird flu, Ebola, all these things are whipped up and inject a massive amount of fear. So I tracked a load of these stories that were inflamed and visualized how many times they'd been mentioned as a kind of timeline of media-inflamed fears. And then found out how many people actually died from them and did that as a contrasting diagram. And you look, the proportion of fear relative to the amount of people that die is vastly exaggerated. So
that's actually incredibly useful news for an investor, actually, because I remember when swine flu was in the newspaper every day, like this, whoever it is, the World Health Organization, this is a catastrophic disease, and there was a stock at the time. This was like in 2008. There was a stock at the time, or maybe 2009. There was a stock that had the symbol HOGS, and so that stock, which had nothing to do with swine flu at all, fell 20% in a day because of all these media headlines, when maybe nobody in the U.S. at that point had died of swine flu. And so I guess these infographics are a good way to really see accurately what's happening in all. The news might have been all accurate. Like, yes, the World Health Organization declared this a disaster. So that did happen. That was a fact. But actually, looking at it in this graphic way might really show how to focus on it.
And it highlights that there are seasons and patterns in the media, and media likes to attach itself to a certain fear. It likes to whip up anxiety because that sells newspapers. Like Ebola is the classic example. It's off the charts in terms of media coverage. But what was the actual real danger in the US from Ebola?
So right now the virus of the day is Zika. What's the actual danger, do you think?
That one's quite high, but it's beginning to lessen. And it didn't have quite the right profile for a media-inflamed fear. It wasn't quite, it was, nasty, but it wasn't quite personally threatening to everybody. It didn't have that sort of, androgynous strain kind of vibe where you think this alien virus is going to come and kill you or infest your animals or whatever. So it didn't have the right kind of profile to go massively supernova. But it's quite a big spike.
I like this Google Insights infographic. So I guess Google had a section where you can see the rate of searches on different terms. So you compared beer versus wine. So many more people searched wine than beer on Google during these years. Tea versus coffee was about the same. Marriage versus divorce started out in 2004, kind of marriage was much more than divorce, and then they kind of started equalizing by 2009. Why do you think that happened?
Maybe it's like Canada, just the liberalization of this of the rules around relationship. I'm not sure. Maybe
also the economy got bad around 2008.
That's true.
And so maybe less people wanted to get married, because divorce sort of stayed the same, but marriage went down.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe less people, and also less young people are getting married, probably.
That's probably true as well.
Let's stop to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team, or I can pick my favorite players, and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take
one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov. You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get 2 memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power, so how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/advance. That's oracle.com/advance. Oracle.com/advance.
Microsoft versus Apple. Of course, Microsoft started off high, and then now Apple even surpassed it a little bit at different points recently. Chocolate ice cream versus vanilla ice cream. I'm glad to see this because people always tell me chocolate's better than vanilla. I'm a huge fan of vanilla ice cream. Vanilla. Wait, what are the spikes? So it seems like every year vanilla has a huge spike over chocolate.
Summer.
So in the summer, people like vanilla better than chocolate?
Yeah.
Is it more refreshing or something?
Must be. It just feels so much better on the tongue.
Actually, the good thing is we don't even have to know. This actually is what people searched on Google. So this right. tells us, we can come up with whatever story we want, but this tells us what happened. Mm-hmm. Britney Spears versus Paris Hilton. Paris had a couple of spikes in 2007. What's this last one? Oh, YouTube versus sex. This is a great one. So sex in 2004 was obviously much higher than YouTube. And then YouTube spikes much higher than sex.
Magnitudes higher.
Why do you think that happens?
Because YouTube's better than sex?
Oh, wait. You had another infographic. What's better than sex? I don't know if I don't remember where that one was.
Did I have a graphic?
Yeah. Oh, that might have been in the new book. You definitely had that graphic. You basically, you started off with the Google phrase, what's better than, and then all the things up you put in like either a word, you didn't put it in a word cloud, but you kind of emphasized what were the more prominent phrases that were better than sex. So what were some of the examples? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I'd have to find that infographic. I'm telling you all about your own infographics.
It's nice to be reminded.
And then, in some cases, of course, it's not just this and that. You have colors and the depth of the colors signifying different things and the size of the words signifying different things.
It's like a visual vocabulary. So with visualization, you're able to take data and information and encode it in visual language that the reader can then decode and understand. And because visuals, patterns, colors are more natural a vocabulary to the eye, to the brain, it's actually a very rapid, direct, interesting, attractive way of communicating information. It's enjoyable to take all this in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of information. So for instance, you have this one on alternative medicine. So on the left-hand side, it ranges from there's no evidence to strong evidence. So strong evidence is acupuncture. No evidence is aromatherapy. What do the size of the circles signify?
The size is popularity, so general popularity of a given alternative treatment.
So for instance, aromatherapy is a lot more popular than biofeedback, even though there's promising evidence that biofeedback might work. And what about the colors? The colors signify kind of what kind of, whether it's natural substances or mystical alternative medicine or
Body therapy.
Yeah. So you have all these different kinds of ways of reading the data, as opposed to if this was an article, it would be unreadable.
Yeah. And kind of boring.
Yeah, because then how much evidence on acupuncture? How are you defining it as, I guess, energy versus, body or whatever? And then, how many people are interested in it versus all these other things? That's interesting. Chinese medicine, there's conflicting. I always thought Chinese medicine, there was evidence, but maybe not.
Yeah, for some treatments there are. Such a big body of knowledge, Chinese medicine.
What's the so the left axis I said was no evidence to strong evidence.
That's alphabetical. So
okay.
The horizontal axis is alphabetical, so you can find things in the data set.
Oh yeah, and then here's one. We actually took this picture a few months ago. Most common breakup times. This is a great infographic. So, why did you make this infographic?
Well, it was personal interest, but is there a pattern to breakups? Like, is there a time of the year when breakups are more likely to happen? So we scraped thousands of Facebook status updates, and we found a pattern in the data. How
did you get all the status updates?
Well, at the time, Facebook had a tool called Facebook Lexicon, which allowed you to search Facebook status updates and derive data from it. It was only on the site for like 3 months before they whipped it off. I think they realized how powerful it was.
Wow. So do they sell data now? Like they could make a lot of money selling big data.
I think they have an internal tool that probably does this. Yeah.
So okay. Did you figure? Okay. So what are some of the dates that are the worst breakup time, or the most common, the most popular breakup times?
Well, there are peaks twice a year. Once around about Easter, and then 3 or 4 weeks before Christmas. There are little mini peaks every Monday, and then there's a flattening out in the summer. Flattening out in the summer, we're thinking, you want to be young, free, and single in the summer, right? A little clear out there. There's a mysterious peak around April Fool's Day when that trick you played really went wrong. Mondays.
Do you think that's why there's a peak around? So again, we don't know. We just know that the breakups happen around the first.
We have to be careful because we don't know. Monday, people come out of bad weekends, maybe update their statuses on Mondays, and then the lowest day of the year is actually Christmas Day.
So nobody breaks up on Christmas.
Who would do that?
But it seems
it's not actually zero.
Right, it's not zero. But then it goes back up again, January 1st, but I guess not that much. It keeps going up until Valentine's Day. So people, or until spring, it keeps rising. Why do you think it keeps rising until spring?
Well, the sap is rising in spring, isn't it? The encouragement to just go out into the world and be young and free.
So people are figuring all along the way, well, I better be single before spring. So I've got it. So depending on the courage of the person who's doing the breakup, that's why the line's going up until finally spring hits and they all clear out. Everybody who was on the fence is just done.
Yeah.
Just give any advice I probably shouldn't argue. So it looks like a big peak 2 weeks before the holidays, I guess, because then you're either going to your, spouse's family's house or not. And so this is probably a good time not to argue with your spouse during these peaks. All right. Let's find some more. They're also interesting. I had a whole bunch here. Oh, here's the what's better than sex one. Bam. Wikipedia.
No.
Food.
No.
Wait, where's sex? Oh, sex is up there. So nothing's better than sex. But here's what people were searching for. Porn almost reached it. And the weather almost reached it. And that's based on Google searches.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this one was really interesting. So there's that game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that any other actor is connected to Kevin Bacon through 6 movies. So they were in a movie who with somebody who was in a movie with somebody who was in a movie with someone who was with Kevin Bacon, and Kevin Bacon basically is connected to every actor within 6 movies. So you are showing in this infographic by the size of the faces of these actors, which actors are actually better or more connected to more actors in fewer connections. So I guess number 1 here is Rod Steiger.
Mm-hmm.
See the Twilight Zone guy?
I think so. Christopher Lee.
I don't know. I don't even know who Christopher Lee is.
You know who Christopher Lee is. He's like Scary Man. He's in a lot of horror films.
Oh, okay. Maybe so a lot of people when they were starting out, they were in horror films, so they co-starred with him. And then Dennis Hopper, he wasn't even in that many movies, right?
Yeah. He goes back. He goes way back. This was from a deep analysis of IMDb, so we did a whole full network analysis to find out people that were better than Bacon.
Well, I guess anybody who's in a movie with Rod Steiger or anybody who was on the Twilight Zone is going to be higher than Kevin Bacon.
I think that's Rod Sterling. I don't think it's Rod Steiger.
Yeah, you're right. So I don't even know who Rod Steiger is. I'm going to have to look him up. Orson Welles is up there. So it's funny. Orson Welles is 15th on the list, and Kevin Bacon is actually 1,094th on the list. Mm-hmm. So he's almost the worst Kevin Bacon out there. Donald Sutherland, 4th. Gene Hackman, 12th. All right. That's a good one. Here's an interesting one. You did an infographic of cosmetic ingredients from shampoos, suntan lotions, soaps, cleansers, and lipsticks. And then you list all the ingredients and all these different cosmetic ingredients, I guess. And then by color, they go from good to deadly. So, and then I guess by size too.
Yeah.
So what's DMD hydantoin? I don't even know how to say it.
I don't know what that is. I just know it's bad.
But if you see it on your lipstick, then you're in trouble. And butylated hydroxynisol. I can't even say most of these. Why would they put boric acid in any of these?
Doesn't sound good.
But it's not as deadly as some of these other ones. There's a lot of deadly. Boy, it's hard to, got to watch out. And I bet you a lot of these come from lipsticks. That's what I want to know, as opposed to shampoos. So, because I want to know if that I'm safe from all, the deadliest of these. Here, I didn't bookmark this one, but this is interesting. Things that'll give you cancer. So you rate these from probably okay to nasty.
This is according to the media. So the media always has a story, this causes cancer, and next week it's another thing that causes cancer. So this is tracking all the things that the media claim cause cancer and how many actually do.
And so, but then you also have them coded by color. No risk, maybe a risk, definite a risk. Where do you get that data from?
So that's scientifically researched.
So there's kind of so the words come from the media, and then the weight of the words is determined by scientific research here. So again, would be an utterly boring article, but as an infographic, I can see right away that asbestos, definitely a risk. Let's see what I'm surprised about. Kissing, no risk, I guess, that color?
No, it's just a highlight.
Okay. Smoked fish, pretty good. Wait, water? Oh, I guess water if it's contaminated. So water is definitely a risk, unless you check it out, I guess. Yep. Water is just as dangerous as gasoline. So I wonder. So the scientific research, what does that mean? Does that mean that just as many people died from contaminated water? I guess that's true. Like if a plant was dumping in a river, right, and people drank the water, they got cancer. What are some of the other ones here? Doesn't this make you anxious? Thinking all these things like water is just as bad as oxygenated gasoline. That makes me anxious.
Yeah, I think so. A little bit wobbly.
Water is just as bad as stress for causing cancer. But sunscreen does not cause cancer.
No.
Good thing toothpaste doesn't cause cancer. All right, here was another one that I thought was interesting. So based on the size of the mug, how much caffeine is in different kinds of coffee or Coke or whatever. So I always thought a can of Coke was as much caffeine as like a cup of coffee. But where's Coke here? Here's Diet Coke, has 47. So Diet Coke has
50.
50 milligrams or something. And then regular coffee has 200 milligrams. And decaf has 8 milligrams. So still a little calf in decaf. Mm-hmm. Green tea, I always thought green tea was the same as coffee, 60 milligrams versus 200. A bar of dark chocolate, 75 milligrams versus 200. This is interesting. Instant coffee, 85 versus regular coffee, 200. You have to remember that. I really want my caffeine. Most edited Wikipedia pages, and this is as of what day? 2008? 2009?
Yeah, I mean, you got a first edition there, so that doesn't go back. There's a more updated version on the website. This is quite a good one, articles of all the most edited Wikipedia pages, because there's a whole hidden culture war that goes on Wikipedia as various people battle over the depiction and explanation of things. And like the page on hummus, for example, is a massive battle in the comments field between Lebanese people, Israelis, and the Arab culture, who all claim to have invented hummus. So they're having this long-ranging battle in the discussion pages of the Wikipedia page over this, the ownership of this.
And are the words weighted by the kind of conflict or the number of changes? So, like, for instance, Jesus is weighted more than Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
That's funny. So Freddie Mercury, though, is one of the most edited Wikipedia pages because people don't know whether he's Iranian, Indian, Parsi, or Azeri. The Death Star, 120 kilometers or 160 kilometers in diameter, I guess.
Massive war over the width of the Death Star.
And why is Avril, I don't even know how to say her name, Lavigne? How do you say her name? Levine. Why is that? I'm with you, or...
over the capitalization of the word with and the song title, I'm with you.
So there's over 3,300 changes, and that means they're changing back and forth. Wikipedia should kind of cap that somehow. Is there any solution?
Well, it's kind of fun. Why not?
Yeah, right. They get more page views. Ann Coulter, almost as much as Jesus. She's got 7,696. Was she born in 1961 or 1963? I don't know. Star Wars. Only slightly bigger than Ann Coulter. So yeah, that is much more interesting as an infographic than as an article. I think the whole issue of how do you make a website go viral kind of suggests that people should focus more on infographics to communicate information.
Yeah, like I said, it's more intuitive, it's quicker, more memorable. There's a real appetite for it. And it's been around for years. I mean, infographics has been around since the 1800s. A lot of very ancient graphics.
What was the first infographic?
I'm not sure, but one of the most popular ones, the most famous ones, is of Joseph Minard from 1860. You've seen it? It depicts the march of Napoleon's army to Russia and its subsequent retreat. And it's just this beautiful hand-drawn painting that shows the tragedy of the campaign as his soldiers get narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower. And then the retreat gets thinner and thinner and thinner as he loses hundreds of thousands of men in this ridiculous campaign.
I see. So there's a lot of information. So it's interesting. There's a lot of information in a very simple format. So you have a map, so you can see the trail that Napoleon took, which could have just been a line. Napoleon went here, and then he went back here. But now there's more information, which is the size of that line determines how many people were alive. And so you could even see probably where the major battles were fought, where they camped for the winter.
And Minard also folds in the average temperature at every stage, so you can see how where the temperature drops, all these soldiers just die. Like hundreds of thousands just die. It's terrible.
I like this one here. So I guess the average lifespan is 77.8 years. So you have circles signifying what do you do during those 77.8 years. So obviously the biggest circle is sleeping. We spend 28 years of our life just sleeping. But I like some of these smaller circles, like reading takes up 1 year of your life. Like one entire year is just sitting around reading. Caring for others is also reading. How do you define caring for others?
Just generally looking after them, parenting, stroking their brow.
Watching TV, though, 8.5 years.
Yeah.
So 8.5 years of my life, which is probably true. I'm a heavy TV watcher. 8.5 years of my life is going to be spent just sitting in front of a screen watching TV. And there's all sorts of apparently negative, probably cancer-causing effects of that.
Do you want to look through the website? Because the website has got more recent stuff. And it's
sure
a bit more browsable.
So, okay, we're looking at your website, and this infographic based on a true story. So where did this come from?
Well, I love movies, and I love based on a true story movies, but I hate being conned. So this is a scene-by-scene, beat-by-beat analysis of the biggest based on a true story films. The Big Short, Spotlight, Bridge of Spies, Imitation Game, and so on. So we went through literally every single scene and create a barcode, if you like. Red indicates false scenes, blue indicates true scenes, and the in-between colors are like true-ish or false-ish, depending on the pedantry setting. So it's an interactive, so you can set a different pedantry level, whether it's, come on, it's movies, or I can bear some dramatic license, or just show me the absolute truth. So it's black, everything's black and white, only a very absolutely true scene.
So The Big Short, which came out in 2016, it's 78% the raw truth.
If you go raw truth, but if you allow a little bit of dramatic license, it actually goes up to 91%. Which is disturbing.
But what's really disturbing is, I mean, so many people love the movie American Sniper and assume that was just true, like how things are happening in Iraq. And that's only like barely about 50% true.
Right.
And The Imitation Game, which basically says World War II was won by this guy who comes up with the Enigma machine or whatever, that's only 41% true.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's a terrible travesty of the historical record. Even the characterization of Turing is wrong. You know, he's characterized as being this sort of
like Asperger's.
He was a very gregarious, very sociable guy. He was a little eccentric, English eccentric, but he was no way an Asperger's.
So most of these are okay. Like The King's Speech, 74%. The Social Network, 76%. What was the most egregious example? Selma, 100%. True. So do you have
Yeah, we can sort by most false. Sort by most false. I think we've already discussed it. The Imitation Game, American Sniper, Dallas Buyers Club, pretty not true as well, 61%. A spine of truth, but a lot of dramatic license there. Wolf of Wall Street, pretty true, 80%.
Yeah, I guess because that's like just like a single thing that happens, and then the cops go after him. So it's a little harder to fake. Things like the Wolf of Wall Street or the Social Network. That's all in like court documents. So a little harder. And The Imitation Game is one of the oldest historically. So maybe they took a little more poetic license. Only 12 Years a Slave comes from an older period of history, but that one was 88% true.
Yeah.
I thought you did one like this based on a true story with TV shows. Did you? Like The Tudors, stuff like that?
No.
Oh, okay, maybe I was thinking I wanted.
That was the other guy.
I wanted that one. So, what's every cooking oil compared? Because everyone says like different cooking oils are healthy.
This is every single cooking oil you could use in the balance of polyunsaturated fats, saturated fats, trans fats, and so on. So you can, and also the smoke point. So a lot of people cook with oils that they should actually just use for salads. So you can destroy the nutritional value of an oil if you overheat it.
So what am I looking at? Like, what's this 84 for sunflower oil? Is that good or bad?
That's monounsaturated, so that's good. Higher the better. Saturated fat, high.
So the best is like the sunflower oil and avocado oil, and the worst is corn oil. What's that one? Grapeseed oil is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Coconut oil is really bad. I always thought that was like super healthy.
Well, it's low in monounsaturated fat. It's high in saturated fat, but it has an interesting different type of saturated fat that may be more healthy. The main thing to pay attention to, though, is polyunsaturated fats. So your omega-3 and your omega-6, you heard of those, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is omega-6 steals the receptors for omega-3. So if your oil has a lot of omega-6 in it, it'll actually prevent the good omega-3 from being absorbed by your body. So the ratio between the two, omega-6 and omega-3, is really important. You want the lowest ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 in any oil you eat.
So what's good here? Soybean oil.
Yeah.
Oh, sesame oil is great.
Yeah.
Beef tallow oil? I never even heard of that. Rapeseed oil, I'm not going to use that anytime soon, but that's good apparently. Hemp oil.
Yeah.
Flaxseed oil looks like the best.
Yeah, 59% omega-3.
Wow, I got to start eating with that if I ever cook again. So again, that's something that would be horrific as an article. How would you even write that as an article? You can't.
You can't.
Because there's so many different ways we're looking at the information there.
Too many variables.
And you have to visually look at it really quickly. I like this one, top 500 passwords visualized.
Yeah, this is good. So this is, when these horrible data breaches occur, the data is often leaked online, which is terrible, but it also means that we can analyze people's password choices. So these are the top 500 English language password and password stems in one diagram. And the cool thing about this is if you examine the data, you find there are different categories of password. So, for example, like a password or password access is a theme. So password is actually the most popular password. 5% of users use the word password as their password. And then there's alphanumerics, a QWERTY ABC one, and so on. So like, yeah, there's 10% of users either use the word password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or the admittedly higher security, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as their password.
So wait, so what's the size of the word mean? So these words are different sizes.
So the size is how long it would actually take to brute force hack that password. That's so, if your password is THX1138 or NCC1701, and I'm sure there are listeners out there that know exactly what those are, that actually would be hard to crack.
But if I had this list, I'll just go straight through this list.
And that's what hackers do. As soon as there's a data breach, they just pour these passwords into their dictionary and use it on a dictionary attack.
So I love the nerdy pop password. So NCC 1701 is the USS Enterprise from Star Trek. THX 1138, George Lucas's first movie.
Very good, sir. You're scoring high on the nerdometer here.
I don't know. Rush 2112.
I don't know what that is either.
Maybe a band by Rush. OU 812. I don't know that one either. Bond 007, though, that's clear. Gandalf, Matrix, Star Wars, Snoopy. So these are all in the top 500 passwords. People actually pick like Snoopy as their password and Beatles.
There's some funny categories as well.
Oh, yeah, Rush has an album, 2112. Why is that the only album, though, that became a password? Like, why isn't there like a U2 album that's a password?
It's quite a good category. It's a rebellious and rude category. So it's like, trust no one, bite me, whatever.
So it's funny. Trust no one is the most popular of the rebellious, rude ones.
And then you also have one I call sort of macho. So it's like
Marlboro.
Maverick, Mustang.
I think if you have to use Maverick as a password, you're probably not a Maverick. That's my rule of thumb.
And then one called Fluffy, so it's like sunshine, lovers, magic,
and of course the ubiquitous panties, which is in everywhere. It's one of the most popular passwords. So okay, again. This would be less interesting as a list because it wouldn't have all the information. We were able to look at the data in a variety of ways by clicking on nerdy or rebellious or alphanumeric. It had to be an infographic,
right? And it had to be.
And how popular was this? Like, did you release this anywhere?
Yeah, I released it. I think it was pretty popular.
What's been the most surprisingly popular page? Let's say in terms of uptick in the first 3 days of release.
Let me see. I think surprising. I don't know.
Well, let me ask this: what actually is the most popular page on your site? What's the most popular infographic you ever did?
I think the left versus right graphic, the political one I described earlier, which charts the concept map of people's different political views. That's probably the most popular. That got circulated far and wide, and it's quite old as well, so it's been around. It's sort of in orbit, circulating all the time. And
I know for me, the one that I definitely saw years, or at least sometime before we met, was the snake oil supplements.
Yeah, which is a favorite one of mine.
Was that a popular one?
Very popular.
Because I must have seen it. Must have gotten shared with me somewhere.
Yeah, and it's one that we curate continually. So we update it every 3 months. So it's like a living graphic. It's interactive. You can filter it depending on what you're interested in.
What's this one? How much do artists earn online?
So this is the flip side of the great streaming revolution. It's great for record companies and for listeners, but it's not so great for artists. Artists suffer because they get paid an absolute pittance for streams. And a lot of people that stream music don't then end up buying CDs. A lot of the money for artists is in physical sales, so CD sales or full album downloads, whereas stream tracks basically don't give them much revenue at all. There's actually a better version of this. Let me bring it up.
How much do artists get, like, if they sell a track on iTunes?
They get about...
So let's say so they sell a track for 99 cents.
Yep. They get, let's see, single track download. They get about 70%.
So, like, if U2 sells a track on iTunes, they get about 70 cents, and then they split that among all the band members. And then do they split that with management and art and...
Yeah,
I guess with everything.
I guess everyone gets their slice. Let me get, there's a different version of this, which is better.
Oh, wait, I want to see this one now. What's the gender pay gap?
this is the gap that mysteriously exists between women and men when they get paid salaries, and it crosses every single job category, every single level of seniority, that there is always a gap, sometimes quite a substantial one, maybe as much as 40 to 50% more.
So like it looks like at a glance, and that's the great thing about this. You don't have to read any article. At a glance, it looks like doctors have the largest gender gap versus like receptionists or accountants or production clerks. Doctors is huge.
Yeah, we can sort actually by gap, so we can see who has the biggest gap. You're right, doctors and surgeons, actually lawyers.
Oh, lawyers. So it's funny that the ones that you have to get the most educations for, there's the largest gap. Why do you think that is?
It's mysterious. I mean, we looked into the whys, and there's a lot of, it's not just straight patriarchal system. There's lots of other factors and hidden variables. I mean, people are mystified why this exists so consistently across every single work category and discipline.
I mean, I could see why the one theory why it might exist across every category is that women get pregnant and men don't. So I don't know, maybe that they have more years outside of the workforce, and so that results in less pay somehow. But I guess this takes into account equivalent years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it also education would seem to create a worse pay gap. Mm-hmm. So I guess the overall point is that looking at things through infographics lead to more questions, allow you to access data in a more quick fashion, and they go more viral. Like how many millions of hits has your site gotten since inception?
Wow, maybe 60, 70 million.
Yeah, so
easily.
that's a lot more than most individual websites just putting up blog posts. Like bloggers don't get those kind of numbers.
No.
So it's interesting. What do you think you've learned in the past 7 years of doing this?
Well, I've learned to be less anxious about various topics, but I've also learned that you can apply visualization to any topic, any data, any subject matter, anything you're interested in can be visualized. And then it suddenly becomes, like you say, just more digestible, more approachable, more memorable.
What are you working on right now? What's the infographic right now that's not done that you're most excited about?
I'm working on a political diagram about the popular left and the popular right, which shows how there's parallels between Bernie and Trump and Podemos in Spain and Syriza and the National Front in the UK, and how this movement has emerged. And again, just clarifying and trying to understand the different perspectives on each side and how it's a new kind of political movement.
And what else?
And I'm working on a large-scale exhibition of my work, which is called the Data Aquarium, which is like a big, huge screens of various depictions of networks and invisible processes around the world.
All right, when's that going to be finished?
Good question. Maybe a couple of years.
Do you have another book coming out?
Yeah, hopefully next year, a book about data and food.
Data and food?
Yeah.
So kind of like the snake oil supplements infographic, but
a little bit
about
like that.
All food? Kind of like the cooking oil one?
Some of that, but more like how to pair food, which tastes go with which, using huge data sets to like generate recipes.
All right, so David McCandless, author of The Visual Miscellaneum, Knowledge is Beautiful, and the informationisbeautiful.net website. I definitely recommend people check out all your stuff. I look at it. It's all fascinating information. But really, I'm selfishly talking to you because I can see whenever I do an infographic on any of my posts, it's much more viral than the post itself. So I've seen it with my own eyes. There's value to this, whether you're an information consumer or producer. It's kind of incredible. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, James.
And let me know when the next thing comes out.
Cool, man. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to everyone listening to this. Please take a moment to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or wherever it is you get your podcasts. It will only take a second, but it will help other people discover the podcast, and it will really show people in general that this is a quality show and that it's worth listening to. You can also check out the show notes at jamesaltucher.com/podcast. Also, if you want to get my blog updates and other updates that I do, sign up for the newsletter at jamesaltucher.com. Thanks again. I really appreciate you guys.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power, so how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/advance. That's oracle.com/advance. Oracle.com/advance.